The third question that we wanted to address in these little mini videos is, does it always take a major disruption or a crisis to cross the first threshold into the field of openness, to go on this adventure of transformation, on this journey that we're speaking of? Well, the question is yes and no. The story of separation that we've been talking about is what I like to say sticky. It's deeply embedded in our minds. It's the oldest part of our brains, the limbic system, that part of our brains that's reactive. And as a survival mechanism, we definitely feel like we're other and we're separate, and we need to protect what's mine and are threatened by the other. And so sometimes it does take a crisis to move us into that kind of more evolved way of thinking, to lean in to what, theologically, Jesus talked about in the atonement or at-one-ment, that this separation is really an illusion. So it does usually, because we're stubborn and it is a sticky story, take some kind of disruption. Think of the four contexts that we addressed regarding the story: interiorly, interpersonally, systemically, the groups we're involved with, or the environment. And think about how we live in those four contexts and the disruptions that may open us up to change in those four contexts. So what I believe is that we can cross the first threshold into openness either because of a crisis or through intention. Either way, it takes practice. It takes choice. It takes movement. I always like to quote Parker Palmer's wonderful quote in his book, Healing the Heart of Democracy. You've heard me say this perhaps. Parker writes, "Life will break your heart. There's a disruption. That's what life does. Our hearts get broken at all of those levels. Whether our hearts are shattered into resentment, judgment, cynicism, shame, which keeps us stuck in that arc of violence that we spoke about in the story kind of quadrant, or whether our hearts are broken open to more love, depends on how our hearts are exercised over time. So it takes practice, it takes intention, and that's what we're going to be talking about as we move into this next quadrant on the journey. How do we exercise opening the mind, suspending judgment, opening up the heart, noticing cynicism and applying compassion, and addressing and moving through fear by applying courage as we move forward on the journey. So this is just an attempt to address some of the questions. Please offer your comments. Just click on comments and we'll get a discussion going about these. We'll see you on Wednesday.